Salut, bonjour à ton tuto de grammaire. Aujourd'hui, on va regarder le ton. Le ton. So welcome to your tuto, grammar tuto. Now, this is le ton, but it's nothing to do with weather, even though that's exactly the same word. This is time we're going to talk about. And this is a really good page. It's chapter 41 out of your grammar book. Or if I just scroll down, you can see that's page 198 or 198. And it's a really good page to look at. Notice it says le ton toi. So you might want to look at le ton 1 and 2 if this is sort of like quite advanced territory for you, but this might not, this might be a revision. It depends where you are on your journey on French. But what's really good about this is it sort of like gives us the key phrases that we need to use when we're talking about time. And it also sort of like gives us lots of sort of like examples of where we're using different tenses, and we can see really clearly why we're using those. So let's have a look at the example in the yellow box first. So, je suis arrivée en France il y a 2 ans. So, je suis arrivée, there we go, that's passé composé there, so it's in the past. In France, notice it's en France. Il y a 2 ans. 2 years ago. Now, you know that il y a means there is or there are, but it also means if it's followed by a length of time, it means ago. And if you're using il y a and a time, you're being specific. And so you will connect it with the passé composé automatically. So you won't be using that with the imparfait. So that's a good one to remember, that the passé composé and il y a will go together. Je partirai dans 6 mois. So that's partir in the future simple. You can always check this out in your Becherel. That's the verb partir. Je partirai dans 6 mois. So I'm going to go away in 6 months. So il y a ago, dans in. Je connais Max depuis 1999. So I've known Max since 1999. So depuis means since. But it doesn't really properly line up with since in English. If you listen to French speakers, quite often they use since when we would use for. But this does mean since. And notice, je connais Max depuis 1999. We would say in English, I've known. But in French, it's the present tense, because anything that started in the past and is still going on in the present is present tense in French. So it doesn't line up with the English tense that we use, which is present perfect in English. J'ai travaillé avec lui pendant 1 an. So I worked with him for a year. So we don't use pour when we're talking about the past, we use pendant. So I worked with him, passé composé, for a year. Let's look at some more examples of those. So l'origine et la durée. So the origin, where's it come from? And the length of time, la durée, duration. So il y a is a moment du passé. It's a moment in the past. So you know what that means now, ago. So je suis arrivée il y a 6 mois. You know what that means? Le film a commencé il y a 1 heure. So both of those are passé composé. So now, dans is a moment in the future. Je partirai dans 2 ans. Le film finira dans 1 heure. So both of those are going to go with the future sample, because we talk about what's going to happen in the future. Okay, now durée, depuis is a duration. Durée qui continue de l'origine jusqu'au présent. So it's a duration that started from its origin and is continuing in the present. So j'étudie le français depuis 3 ans. So I've been studying French for 3 years. So notice again, that's present tense, because in French, something that started in the past and is carrying on now is present tense. So I've been, so depuis would mean for there. J'étudie le français depuis 3 ans. Je vis à Rome depuis 2 ans. I've been living in Rome for 2 years. So don't think you need to use pour in that sense, because we're going to come to pour in a minute. It's used in the future. It's not used for something that started in the past and is carrying on in the present. En début de phrase, on utilise il y a, que, ou ça fait que. So this is not the same meaning as when you have il y a and then a time duration. let's have a look at what this means. So, ça fait 2 ans que j'habite à Rome. It's been 2 years that I've been living in Rome. And you can imagine a French speaker would say it like that, wouldn't they? It's been 2 years I've been living in Rome, though. So I've been living in Rome for 2 years, we'd say, obviously. So ça fait 2 ans. So ça fait, the length of time, and then que, and then whatever it was that you were doing. That's my preference, actually, that one, out of the two. I very rarely use this one. Il y a 2 ans que j'ai déménagé. It means the ça fait. It means the same as ça fait. It doesn't mean ago. So it's been 2 years since I moved. But I guess because I associate il y a so strongly with ago, I don't use that one. I prefer to use ça fait. You might want to do the same, but you might want to use both. That's up to you. Now, pour, durée prévue. So it's a planned duration. It's not actually happened yet. It's in the future. So don't automatically think, oh, pour means for in English, so I can use it for 3 years, for example, because this is, I've been studying French 4 years, is depuis. So pour durée prévue, so then we've got a little table here that shows us. I don't know how helpful that is, actually. Anyway, je suis à Paris pour 2 ans. So it's planned, prévu, it's planned. Je suis à Paris pour 2 ans. I'm in Paris for 2 years. Now, we would use the future there, wouldn't we? I'm going to be in Paris for 2 years. I'm going to be. So here we're using the present tense, and we're using pour, and that tells us that this is something that's going forwards, it's planned. J'ai loué un appartement pour 6 mois. I've rented an apartment for 6 months. And even though the renting bit is in the past, the actual living part is going to be in the future. So that's why it's pour. En avoir, pour, so we've got pour in there, estime la durée d'une action. So you say en avoir pour is to estimate how long something is going to happen, the duration of an action. So, t'as bientôt fini? Have you nearly finished? Are you going to finish soon? Oui, j'en ai pour 5 minutes. Yeah, I've got for another 5 minutes, literally. It means it's going to take me 5 more minutes. So notice we're not using prendre there. We're using j'en ai pour to mean it's going to take me another 5 minutes. Pendant, very useful word. You use it all the time. It has quite a few different uses. But in this example, in this page here, when we talk about time, say durée finie. So this is a duration that's finished. Avec un début et une fin précise. So with a beginning and a precise ending. So that means we're going to use it with the passé composé. Pendant que we use with the imparfait, but this is pendant, nice and simple, no que. So, il a plu pendant 8 jours. It rained for 8 days. So passé composé, and there's the for in the pendant. J'ai dormi pendant 10 heures. So I slept for 10 hours. Defined period, so passé composé, and it's for. And then finally, what we've got here is on for quantité de temps nécessaire pour faire quelque chose. So on, that word is used for all sorts of different things in French. It's quite often people say it's the little words, Ellie, that cause the problems. And I couldn't agree more. But in this case, it's quantité de temps nécessaire. So it's the amount of time necessary to do something. So, je fais le ménage en 10 minutes. So I do the housework in 10 minutes. So that's how long it takes me, en 10 minutes. J'ai repeint la cuisine en 2 jours. I repainted the kitchen in 2 days. Distinguer, so there's a little sort of like warning sign here to distinguish. On doit finir en 3 jours, temps de réalisation. On doit finir dans 3 jours, de date future. So the difference here is we should be finished in 3 days, which is how long it will take to do it. And on doit finir dans 3 jours is we'll finish in 3 days, which is we'll be finished in 3 days' time. So it might take you, the first one might take you 3 days to actually physically do the work, but you might spread it over 6 weeks, for example. So it's only 3 days of actual work. This one is it will actually be finished in 3 days. I guess if you were dealing with builders in France or something, that distinction would actually mean an awful lot to you. But the main thing to take from this page, and you might, like I say, you might want to have a look at time 2 and 1 and 2 first. But the main point I think to take here is you've got several things going on. One is that there are lots of different ways of saying for, so you can't just translate pour for into French. And also that we definitely have some things here which are setting off the passé composé. So that's useful because you can really be sure that you're using the passé composé where it needs to be used. And also there's a difference between English and French in that depuis, that we use the present tense as something that started in the past and is carrying on now and into the future. So probably a lot of surprising things in there. You might want to just take 1 or 2 of them and just think, well, okay, I'm going to start using that. Or even come up with some of your own phrases. Of course, there's also the exercises you can do in the book that will help consolidate this as well. Bon, bah, merci beaucoup. Merci d'être là, d'avoir écouté. Et puis, bah, à la prochaine alors. Merci. Au revoir. Au revoir.